When I'm facilitating, I'll often say to people, if they have very opposite stances, let's say, and they're kind of at a standstill, I will tell them, having these opposing views, like both of you can be right. More than one thing can be true, which I think is hard for some people to accept, right? But what I do is I try to guide them to find the intersection of their ideas and in order to collaborate and get the best from both. Welcome to Discovering You, where personality meets possibility. I'm your host, Victoria Theriault. On this show, we dive deep into what makes people tick and how understanding that transforms the way we lead, work, and connect. Hi, listeners. Hi, Heather.
Hi there.
How are you?
I am good.
What is your color in your mood today?
It's yellow. It's high energy and pleasant. And my word is determined. Knowing what you want and not letting anything stand in the way.
I like that. Do you have any insight into why you got that?
No, I'm just feeling like I have some direction right now. Maybe it's a January thing, or maybe it's because I'm been in my house for a long time because it's been snowing.
Yeah.
I built my website.
Nice.
I've been needing to build it for years. I mean, I've had one, but it was terrible. I just have like a feeling of determination to clean up some things that have been lingering for a while.
Great. I hope that's catching.
What is your color?
I don't usually get this, but I have to be honest, I'm in the red today. I'm trying to decide between the words. I'm trying to decide between worried and concerned. So those are words that are red. I guess I would have thought they would be more in the blue. It's interesting, right? They're almost at the very bottom where the colors will intersect. And again, this is in the How We Feel app, listeners, if you want to try this for yourself. I mean, I think worried and concerned. I feel like that's kind of my MO, especially these days. But yeah, I have a friend who's in the hospital. That's where it's coming from. I think everything's probably going to be okay, but it's a worry, right? Today is part 2 of our exploration of leadership using the high potential trait indicator. But before we get to that, Sunday is the Super Bowl. Do you usually watch, Heather?
I don't really follow football or the Super Bowl. I'm more of a watch it for the snacks and commercials kind of person, if I watch at all.
Yeah. I feel like in the last few years, our family's increasingly gotten into it. And the team we follow, much to our often distress and heartbreak, is the Chicago Bears. They did have a good season, though, I will say that. There's kind of a long story there, and it's a lot of sentimental history. But for those of you who are listening, if you know, you know. Okay, so with the Super Bowl in mind, here is DISC as football. High D is quarterback. Directs makes quick decisions. High I, we have wide receiver. The touchdowns and the glory. High S is lineman, consistent, dependable. And high C is kicker, precise, specialist. Back to our topic for today. If you haven't listened to the last episode, which is part 1, I recommend doing that as we discuss the first 3 personality traits that correlate to leadership, and their conscientiousness, adjustment, and curiosity. Again, I want to reference the source material for this. It's McCrae, Furnham, and Reed, and I took this certification course through Thomas International. And as a refresher, the high potential trait indicator helps to identify, manage, and develop leadership potential. Jumping back in, we're going to explore the 4th personality trait of the HPTI, which is risk approach. This looks at how a person deals with challenging, difficult, or threatening situations. High risk approach is described as being bold, proactive, self-assured, and having a rational approach to difficult conversations. People with high risk approach are willing to confront challenges directly and immediately. They look at a broad range of options, decide what they believe is best, and act quickly. The DISC factor that this reminds me most of is high D. Ds are willing to take risks for rewards, and they don't hesitate to take action. They are quick decision makers. Now, having a low risk approach is more careful, cautious, cooperative, avoiding confrontation, more risk adverse. And those with a lower risk approach tend to avoid challenges or conflicts until they have no other choice. How does this trait show up in leadership, individuals, and groups? A high risk approach is vital for leadership Leaders must be able to confront problems, take calculated risks, and have difficult conversations. They should be able to consider a range of options without being very reactive. And remember, reactive is different than responsive. A very reactive personality trait can actually lead to avoidance of problems. An interesting side note on this one: while high risk approach is considered to be an asset for a leader, it can be problematic when it's combined with a low conscientiousness score. And we discussed that on part 1, but as a reminder, low conscientiousness descriptors include being casual about deadlines and lacking self-motivation. So you could see why this could present some challenges if it was coupled with high risk approach, because the person may have the desire to win without the capacity to put in the required work. For individuals, high-risk approach can be related to higher performance. They may be better at solving problems before they escalate. They would likely operate well in a fast-paced environment where quick decisions need to be made. Those who are lower in this may perform better in roles where there is lower risk and conflict. So how does risk approach show up in groups? Those who are high in it are strong in being assertive and confronting problems, but they may appear overly aggressive to others. And this is really like what happens with high D versus low D. It's ideal to have a range of this trait in a team or group. If there are too many with high risk, it could become fractious and antagonistic. And then conversely, if there are too many with low risk, they may struggle to make decisions and resolve intergroup conflict. What does an excessively high risk approach look like? Confrontational, blunt, arrogant, may be perceived by others as reckless and disrespectful. Yikes. Heather, I'm glad that neither of us scored excessive in this one. Of the 6 traits, this is the only one I scored low in. It's not super surprising. I'm definitely not a risk taker. I think, though, what most led to my score on this is the not feeling comfortable making quick decisions. I'm a high S, so duh, obviously. And my score is just a teeny tiny bit off the moderate zone. So I think that seems fair. Heather, you are very much in the moderate zone, and actually, you're even quite close to optimal on this one. Does that feel right?
I mean, I think it feels right. I don't tend to avoid challenges,
No, you don't.
but I do tend to avoid conflict a bit.
Okay.
Not in a pretend it's not there kind of way, but more in a how do we mitigate this kind of way. I don't love that side of things.
Right. I think for you, where I see it showing up well is you can make decisions and take action. For sure, I knew you and I would get different on this.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be smiling on the part where I'm like, I'm not comfortable making quick decisions. I'm sure you're like, no kidding.
I'm pretty comfortable moving forward, figuring things out as we go, whereas you're like a bit more cautious in that. You're a finisher and then release
Yes.
more certainty before we act. I'm more of a, okay, well, here's an idea and we'll just keep formulating as we
Right.
go.
Yep. I think that makes total sense for both of us. All right. Moving on to the 5th trait. This one is called ambiguity acceptance. And this is how people react to complexity, contradictory information, situations where decisions and evidence are not immediately clear. People with high ambiguity acceptance are tolerant, versatile, analytical, resourceful, adaptable, interested, open, and questioning. Those with low ambiguity acceptance find divergent information and uncertainty frustrating. They prefer more consistency, clarity, clear direction. And this trait can also be characteristic of businesses or organizations. A company with flexible policies and high tolerance for individual decision making would represent high ambiguity acceptance, whereas others with very rigid processes and hierarchies would be low. The DIS factor that this one is most like is high S, especially the parts about being interested and open to considering all options. In terms of leadership, ambiguity acceptance is important and becomes even more so at higher levels of leadership. Leaders are constantly presented with mixed information, conflicting views, and options. They must be able to cope and thrive when faced with ambiguity. For individuals, accepting ambiguity improves performance in jobs that require flexibility and mixed sources of information. Lower levels of this trait could work well in jobs that are more defined by a pre-existing process and objectives. And then in a group, this trait affects interactions because those with higher ambiguity acceptance are more likely to seek out conflicting opinions or evidence that may contradict their current understanding. Those who have lower ambiguity acceptance dislike mixed messages and get frustrated when they feel that people are not being clear. Now, let's get to what excessively high ambiguity acceptance looks like. It looks like throwing caution to the wind, maybe being erratic, at times illogical. Ideas can appear to others as being too vague and unclear. For this one, I got optimal. I was a little bit surprised initially, but when I dug into it a bit more, it makes sense. I definitely agree with the part about being open to ideas and especially that contradictory piece. When I'm facilitating, I'll often say to people, if they have very opposite stances, let's say, and they're kind of at a standstill, I will tell them, having these opposing views, like both of you can be right. More than one thing can be true, which I think is hard for some people to accept, right? But what I do is I try to guide them to find the intersection of their ideas and in order to collaborate and get the best from both. Another part of this trait's description is that the person may come across as indecisive, guilty as charged. Heather, you got slightly excessive on this one. And honestly, I'm not sure about that. I don't see it work-wise, and I'm wondering what you think, and I'm also wondering if you think maybe this is more in the personal life realm.
If I'm honest, I didn't entirely understand. Like, I had a hard time grasping this
Fair.
section.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm comfortable sitting in the gray areas of things. Potentially people that work with me where I have all these ideas. I have vague, sort of not thought out ideas.
Okay.
So maybe it comes across
Yep.
that way. Like, I'm pretty adaptable. And maybe it's because I work with so many small business.
Yeah.
We just have to be vague about it.
Yeah.
We just recently started working with a bigger corporate entity. Things move very differently than like the people
Right.
I'm used to working with that are text message in the middle of the night, like, let's do this, let's do that. I always think of myself as the chameleon. I'm fine however we want to do it.
Sure.
Again, that's how I think of myself, but I don't know if that even fits with this section or if I'm not completely understanding it.
No, I think it fits. I said this last time, but listeners, if you are getting a score in the excessive zone, and again, let me just clarify where yours is, Heather. In fairness, what it means is you've already been through the optimal zone. And again, you're just slightly in it. So it's kind of easier to walk it back. So it kind of means you know what it is. It's almost like overplaying a hand, right? We can sometimes do that. We can overplay our
Oh, okay.
strengths. And
Oh,
if
I
we're
like that. Yeah.
overplaying it, then that works against us. And I agree with what you said. Where I see it in you is just having ideas and initiative and not maybe having it all figured out, but moving ahead anyway. Your point is well made about business owners. And I think that's why you and I certainly would have this higher because you don't always have everything mapped out. And also, it's not a big corporation. So there aren't those checks and balances that like a lot of people have to follow and rules and procedures. And we don't really have to do that. It's like, I want to do that. I'm going to do it. As a either solopreneur or have a small business, you kind of have to have that. If you had that very regimented, rigid way, I think it would cause you problems. So I think that makes sense for us. Finally, the last of the 6 high potential traits is competitiveness. And this one I think is probably fairly self-explanatory. Before I even start the description, can you guess which DISC factor is going to align with competitiveness? No contest, right? Clearly high D. Competitiveness describes people's desire to win, need for power, and reaction to winning and losing. People who are high in competitiveness tend to be goal-oriented, ambitious, assertive, eager, and focused on achievements. Those who are low in competitiveness are more cooperative, accommodating, collaborative, and may appear unambitious at times. In terms of leadership, competitive people often attain it due to their ambition and achievement orientation. And if used optimally, it can be a driver of strong leadership. But it could also have a darker side if it's not checked, and that could look like narcissism. For individuals, this trait can be a driver of self-improvement and hard work. Those who are lower in competitiveness can be more receptive to feedback, more open to taking direction, and require less praise or recognition to be motivated. And in groups, competitiveness shows up in how people interact with the rest of the team. Those who are very competitive may desire recognition for their achievements from other members. Those who are lower in it can be equally effective in teams, but they may not want to stand out and may gain more satisfaction from the team's overall success than their own achievements. Now, what does excessively high competitiveness look like? It could present as aggressive. And again, let's make a differentiation between aggressive and assertive. And so others might perceive it as power focused. And this has the potential to alienate team members with whom you need to collaborate. So, to our regular listeners, do you want to take a second and guess how Heather and I scored on this one? And we will do a reminder that last time Heather said she thought because excessive was the highest, that meant winning. In a surprise to none, I'm sure, Heather got excessive on this and I got moderate. Heather, what do you think?
I don't consider myself super competitive with other people.
Yes.
I consider myself competitive with myself.
Yes. I think that's a really good clarification to make. And I often will say that when I'm talking to high Ds and explaining it. And I can tell you actually more often than not, that's exactly what it is. It's pushing yourself to the next level.
Yeah, it's like raising the bar or want to do better than I did last time. Even in the business, it's like, how do I up-level everybody's stuff? I guess I could see how I'm excessive at that though, where it's maybe too much. And I'm not to say I'm not competitive with other people. It's not like I want what they have, but I see things and I'm like, "Oh, I want to accomplish that too." And so I'm just pushing myself, but 100%.
Yeah, I think so. And I think mine being the moderate is probably right too. I feel like there's certain times and circumstances where maybe that'll be. If it's a trivia game or something, I'll probably be pretty competitive.
I also don't play if there's not a chance to win.
Oh, hello.
Like trivia, I'm useless at. I'm not going to get super competitive in a Trivia Pursuit game because I'll maybe get one question of one category right. Where my sister or Frank or they're like hardcore trivia. They know everything about everything. So I don't try to compete.
Can I just make an observation there?
Of course, I'm always open to observation.
The fact that you won't even compete or do that, do you see how that's almost an indication of where the competitiveness lies for you? Because let's say you weren't competitive. You just wouldn't care. You'd go along with it and you'd be like, I don't have any skin in this game. I'm not good at it, but what do I care? Because I'm not competitive. I'll go along for the ride. But because you know that you couldn't possibly win, I'm not even going to do this.
Yeah, because I was about to say it would be the same if someone's like, "Do you wanna go downhill skiing?" I'm not gonna win that either. But if you gave me in 6 months, do you wanna do that? 100% I'll do it. Like, I'll work towards something, but if I'm not currently able to participate in a way that isn't good, that's not the right language around it, but, like, if I can't be competitive in it, then I'm not going to compete.
Right. I think we all have that to some degree. And I think skiing is a different example. I can relate to that because also that's serious. You could really injure yourself. But could you hang around for a couple hours and play a game that really is not consequential? Probably. Again, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, well, no, I shouldn't say that for the game because clearly, clearly the game part does bother me. But otherwise, I'm okay with just knowing, yeah, not for me. Go ahead.
Maybe it's a high D thing, but part of it is what's the point?
Yeah,
And maybe I'm getting better at it, but, like, it's not about the journey, it's about the destination
that is
still.
such a high D comment. Ah. Okay, so now that we know what goes into strong leadership traits, let's look at the flip side. In the HPTI training course, we learned about what leadership failure looks like. It's called derailment, and notably, it's connected to these 6 traits. This is a theme that arises often. Our greatest strengths can also be our biggest challenges. So, these derailers occur when a leader overplays a strength. The researchers note that when looking at the potential to do well as a leader, we also need to refer to the potential to maybe do damage. And here are 10 potential leadership derailers. The first one is arrogance. And that includes always thinking they're right, their way is best, not acknowledging their mistakes, and always wanting to take credit. Next is melodrama, needing to be the center of attention, martyrdom, low self awareness. Then we have volatility, temperamental, taking risks for the thrill of it, inconsistent, fickle. I think we have some real world examples of that. Excessive caution, indecisive, uncertain, missing opportunities, maybe being overly consultative, habitual distrust. So that's assuming the worst, viewing others' mistakes as sabotage, and seeing other people's successes as a threat. Aloofness, being disengaged, disconnected, and avoiding interactions with others. Eccentricity, liking to feel different and unique and really playing up differences and attention seeking. Passive resistance, so that's not voicing disagreement, being withdrawn, avoiding confrontation. Perfectionism, an obsessive need for things to be the best, preoccupied by minor details, and so then the work is never finished and constant change is needed. And then an eagerness to please, wanting to be liked, more concerned with popularity than results, and preserving relationships at all costs. Now, Heather, I'm not saying either of us have any of these, but for fun, if you had to pick, which one do you think would be your derailer?
So I sat with this for a minute because at first I thought, again, I don't really 100% align with any of them, but I thought, oh, maybe it's passive resistance because I don't really like to voice disagreements and I do avoid confrontation if I can.
Mm-hmm.
But then the more I was trying to put that in practice, I don't know if that's it. And then I thought maybe it's aloofness because I don't necessarily think I'm aloof, but I do think when I'm under pressure or I'm busy or things like that, I will get internal. Don't talk to me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put my head down and do my work kind of thing. If I had to pick one, I think I'd pick
Yeah.
aloofness.
I don't really see any of those in you, and I don't necessarily think we have them. I think it's very apropos for this show and to show our levels of self-awareness to see which ones do we think perhaps this may happen. And so,
Yeah, absolutely. How about you?
again, I was also kind of looking between two. I would say, do you want to take a guess, or does that mean to put you on the hot seat?
No, well, when you were reading them,
There's Victoria.
the perfectionism
Yeah.
part, but not perfectionism. I want things to be the best, but you are very, I wouldn't say preoccupied with minor details, but I feel like
Yeah.
you are very detail oriented.
Yeah.
So I'm not always the person that does research and things, but I'll be like, well, if Victoria's done it, then there's no mistake.
Oh, that's funny. No pressure.
Between the two of us,
Yeah.
you're more of a
Yeah.
perfectionist than I am.
That's
Put it
fair.
that way.
Good job. That's what I thought too. And I also could see the excessive caution coming into play a bit too, right? Just the indecisiveness and uncertainty and maybe being overly consultative. I can see that one. So yeah, maybe a little bit of those. Hey, they go together well. Now we talked all about what the traits and potential derailers are, but I do want to reiterate that this is not an all or nothing scenario. If you don't have any of these traits in an optimal zone, that is okay. If you do the HPTI assessment, there's a coaching session and you'll learn some strategies to either enhance, dial down, or maintain, depending on scoring low, excessive, or moderate. True leaders want to keep learning, growing, and evolving. And this isn't just for people with a leadership title at work. Even if we are not currently in a leadership role, maybe we're aspiring to be, or even not. We all have situations where we will be called upon to lead, and whether that's with a client, a coworker, personal life situations. Understanding, strengthening, and developing skills can elevate us all. If you're interested in learning more about leadership development, strategies, and coaching, please reach out to me. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye. This show is a Twisted Spur media production produced by our very own Heather McPherson. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with a friend and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.